So why don't we get into a little bit of basketball, because it seems like here in New York, Donovan Mitchell's name has been dragged along for really the last couple of weeks. And me being one of those guys that said that a couple of weeks ago, I would say about a week and a half ago, he went to dinner with Emmanuel Quigley. He went to dinner with Obi Toppin. And we sit here, everybody was making jokes at me on the Sports Loudmouth saying that I don't know what I'm talking about, that every single player goes out with every other team or every other player that they're friends with. But how do we know that Emmanuel Quigley, who's a young player, is friends with Donovan Mitchell? Now, Emmanuel Quigley is a good, young, growing player on the New York Knicks. Now, he could be a part of the Donovan Mitchell trade. That very much could happen. But right now, Donovan Mitchell, you can see the Utah Jazz are only negotiating with the New York Knicks. And that says a lot about Donovan Mitchell and where he wants to go. Is Donovan Mitchell the superstar the Knicks have been craving for ever since Carmelo Anthony has left? I think he's a lot younger than Carmelo was when he came to the Knicks. I think Carmelo was 29 when he came to the Knicks. Donovan is going to be 26 going into the season. He has 3 years, the younger type of player for the Knicks to bring in. They can build around Donovan Mitchell. They can build around R.J. Barrett. The question is, when you look at the New York Knicks, if they add Donovan Mitchell, and if they trade an Obi Toppin and a Grimes and maybe a McBride or other players, maybe even Quigley, possibly 5 to 6 first-round draft picks, is this going to be enough with Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, and R.J. Barrett? And maybe if they could somehow keep Julius Randle, which they can if they move Fournier in the trade. If they could do that, they have their 4 guys that they could build this team around with a good bench, a decent bench, and maybe move forward as an elite Eastern Conference team.
You wonder now, with Julius Randle still there as the last kind of big, along with Fournier, big contract, if he is going to be included at this point in the trade, or they might have to deal him in a separate trade if they want to make the money work, unless another team is interested in Fournier. Now, the initial rumors with the direct trades with the Jazz was Quentin Grimes was the guy they were interested in most, and the Knicks were most interested in trading the Mitchell Robinson. So it looks like it's going to be a package of both, from what I'm hearing, along with 3 first-round picks. They have up to 8 first-round picks to trade. Obviously, they don't need to trade all of them, but we've heard up to 5 in certain trades. I also heard a 3-way trade, too, including the Cavaliers getting involved as well, where I think Bogdanovich goes from Utah to Cleveland, and Cleveland gives them some first-round picks, too, and the Knicks have to give them, I think, an additional player or something like that, too. But the most likely scenario is going to be Grimes and or Mitchell Robinson at this point. The Knicks brought in Isaiah Hartenstein as a big man, maybe, so maybe they think Mitchell Robinson now dangling him in a trade, potentially. The Jazz are loading up with big men already from the Gobert trade, so very interesting that would be the case. But still, it looks like Quentin Grimes is the main trade target. And you mentioned it many times. He's been a trade target throughout the league. It seems like a lot of teams want him.
When I watched Quentin Grimes play last year, he reminded me of a young Devin Booker. Now, I don't know if he's going to turn into a player of that magnitude. I don't know. But he has the talent. He has a great shooting touch at the three-point line. The guy could do everything. And he's a good ball handler. He's playing very well right now for the Knicks in the summer leagues. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Knicks do with Quentin Grimes. If the Knicks do make the move with the Utah Jazz, Grimes will be the lead guy in the package. We'll see what Utah is going to do with the New York Knicks if the Knicks are the team that they're going to trade with. Now, it seems like the only team that can make a move for Donovan Mitchell right now is the Knicks, because Miami right now is caught up with this Tyler Hero thing. Tyler Hero is still not signed anywhere else. I think they're trying to maneuver contracts to try to bring Tyler Hero back in Miami. If that happens, they have no room for Donovan Mitchell. Phoenix looks like they're going to re-sign DeAndre Ayton. I was very surprised with that, as the Indiana Pacers gave him a contract offer, and then probably within 7 hours, Phoenix matched that offer. So it looks like DeAndre Ayton's going back to Phoenix, and the only player they would probably move DeAndre Ayton for is Kevin Durant. So it doesn't look like Phoenix, even though Donovan Mitchell has said that he would like to go to Phoenix as well, is the team that he would go to. So I don't think it was a coincidence when the Knicks and Julius Randle and Allen Houston and Worldwide West was at the playoff series for the Utah Jazz and the Dallas Mavericks, that Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell were playing in that game, that they weren't there trying to recruit. As we all know that the Knicks are going to be fined for the Jalen Brunson signing because of doing illegal things, not following the CBA rules during the season, not to talk to players. They're going to be fined at least a couple $100,000. But I don't think the Knicks care. I don't think James Dolan cares about a couple $100,000, especially that the Knicks got the point guard that they want and maybe very soon get the superstar that they want, Speedy.
Yeah, it seems like as well the official signing of it was was taking a while, maybe because they were investigating it too. And luckily, they didn't lose any draft picks, as we know. They'll probably get fined, yeah, but there was no investigation into full-on tampering like we've seen in the past in the NBA, so that's a good sign. In terms of the value of the trade for Donovan Mitchell, I actually am encouraged by the fact that it would be just Grimes and Robinson from what I'm hearing. I was thinking Obi Toppin was going to be the centerpiece of the deal for a while with Utah, or Emmanuel Quigley as a possibility as a second option, but Toppin, especially with the well-rounded game he has, him being a top 10 pick and thought of as a top 5 player in that draft in 2020, I would have thought he would have been the centerpiece. So I'm kind of encouraged that the Knicks could be able to keep him. At this point, they're going to keep RJ Barrett because the trades have gone on too long. If the Jazz were going to trade for RJ Barrett, the Donovan Mitchell trade, it would have happened already. It would have happened a while ago. Obi Toppin, I was worried, would be the piece that was going, and it looks like that is not the case. And if it is the case, it might be less picks involved in the trade too.
I am reading that the Heat are also believed to be interested in obtaining Mitchell, but being that there's too much that they're going to have to give up in that trade, and they're going to have to maneuver salaries with certain players, it's not likely that's going to happen. That's why I know Orlando's name has been brought up because they have a lot of young players and they have a lot of draft stock. I don't know if Donovan Mitchell would be wanting to be traded over there to Orlando. I don't think it's one of those teams that he's targeting to go to. They're not a team that's up and coming, and they're young, and they're going to have talent in the next couple of years, as they had the number 1 draft pick this year who looks like he's going to be a pretty good player. But it's going to take a little while. Donovan Mitchell's 26 and he wants to win a championship. Right. So he wants to go to the Eastern Conference. Obviously, you could see that. But right now, it's hit a snag right now with the Knicks, and everybody expected this to happen. What we're hearing is Danny Ainge wants everything but the Statue of Liberty. So if that's the case, the Knicks are just not going to throw away all these draft picks, because the Knicks have 11 first-round draft picks coming up in the next 7 years. Right. They're not going to trade away 6 or 7 of them. And they're going to have to give away Quentin Grimes, who was their number 1 pick last year, who everybody likes. Mitchell Robinson's another name brought in. Derrick Rose and Evan Fournier. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Now, Evan Fournier, it seems like, is the guy that they're going to try to move, not Julius Randle, because they want to keep Julius Randle if they get Donovan Mitchell. Then they have a 4 that they can build their team around. And that could be as good a 4 in the Eastern Conference as any team. Up and down, you look at Miami right now. Miami has a good 5, but they don't have, as much as I'm not a big Julius Randle fan, Julius Randle could give you 20 and 10. Donovan Mitchell could give you 25 and 7 or something like that. Jalen Brunson, who could give you 16 and 7. RJ Barrett, who could be a star very soon, who could give you 25 and 10 as well. If you could keep all these guys and bring Donovan Mitchell in, you can build your team. Then you have something to look forward to as a Knicks fan going into next year. As far as the Brooklyn Nets are concerned, this whole Kevin Durant thing is so interesting and a joke, because as much as they want to move on from Kevin Durant, I don't think any team is going to make a move for a guy like that. For one reason is because they want the world for him. As much as you're seeing Utah and Danny Ainge wants from the Knicks to get Donovan Mitchell, I think they want a hell of a lot more for Kevin Durant. If you're listening to what the Golden State Warriors could be offering, they're offering Jordan Poole, Draymond Green, Wiseman, and maybe Andrew Wiggins and 2 first-round draft picks. If you look at that, I don't see why the Brooklyn Nets don't make that trade, because they're not getting anything close to that anywhere else. Then we heard the Phoenix Suns offered the Brooklyn Nets a sign and trade DeAndre Ayton, Bridges, Cam Johnson, and maybe 2 first-round draft picks. They wanted 4, which it's ridiculous. Nobody's just going to give you first-round draft picks because you don't know where that team's going to be in the next 4 to 5 years. Now, let's say Kevin Durant goes to Phoenix. What is their window? 2 years? Chris Paul is how many years old? Chris Paul's 37 years old. He's got another 2 years. And then all they have is Devin Booker. If I was the Brooklyn Nets, I would make that trade too, because it's the bird rights of those picks. If you think about it, you can't trade away every other year's first-round draft pick, which means within every other year, probably in the next 4 or 5 years, Phoenix is a lottery team again, because all they have is Devin Booker. Devin Booker's a great player, but if you don't have another superstar there, Booker can't draw another superstar there, who's going to want to go and play in Phoenix?
Not only that, we've also seen Devin Booker kind of like the Kyrie Irving treatment we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. When he's just on his own, they haven't gone anywhere when it comes to win value, making the playoffs, just him on his own with the surrounding cast of young players. And a lot of the top picks that have come into Phoenix over the years have struggled because of that kind of thing, where they didn't really have that. Now you're seeing the recent drafts, 18-19 strive when Chris Paul has come in. DeAndre Ayton got better, a lot better, when Chris Paul was there, as did Mikal Bridges. So, yeah, I definitely seems like a win-win for both teams if they could somehow get that to work, because the Nets need all the depth they can get. They need all the size they can get, and DeAndre Ayton definitely brings that. And then they got 2 wings to help out, too, and they get all those draft picks to be able to either maneuver or trade for somebody Kyrie Irving wants. I don't know. There's a lot of scenarios.
Kyrie Irving is more than likely going to, out of all the players that could be moving from the Brooklyn Nets, it would probably be Kyrie Irving. I can't see the Brooklyn Nets keeping Kyrie Irving. Eventually, I think they're going to just buy right in and just get rid of him. Trade him to the Lakers, get what you can from the Lakers, and get rid of him. I don't see the Nets just giving away Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant, to me, is still the high-profile player that he is. If he didn't get hurt last year, he wins the MVP. And the Nets would probably be screaming for more in draft picks. So it's very, very interesting where the Brooklyn Nets could go with Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I think the Warriors are another interesting one, though, too. Now, they're going to have to probably make the salary cap work more like the Heat does, too. So I think Phoenix probably still has a slight edge. But again, Kevin Durant, if he does want to reunite with Steph Curry, does have the connections already there. So it'll be interesting to see if he actually values going back to the Warriors and his relationship with a lot of those players there. Now, Draymond Green was allegedly the one that was the big reason he came in, and then the big reason he left. So that'll be interesting. But you also said he might be included in the trade as it is.
Yep.